Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and on this show, ambitious women learn how to create a life they're obsessed with, without the hustle, without the grind, without torturing ourselves, and without following anybody else's rules. This podcast is all about creating our own rules, owning our identity as creator, and hitting every single goal we set for ourselves. Together, we're redefining success on our terms and building lives that look as good as they feel. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast, where I have a doozy of a message for you today. Today is about guilt and shame, that guilt and shame spiral that I find so many high achievers in. And even though you have everything and you have achieved so much and so many people in your life look to you to be the one who has your shit together, you still feel like you're failing. If you've ever asked yourself that question, why can't I just be happy? What the fuck is wrong with me? Then this episode is for you. And the reason why I say it is a doozy is because you are going to have to come face to face with a lot of the lies that you have been believing your entire life that give you this continuous guilt and shame spiral that can literally torpedo your entire life. And if you're new here, you may not know this, but I have a lot of personal experience with this. I recently recorded a podcast where I shared my entire story of how I got to the place where I am today and doing the work that I do today, which came from kind of my own guilt and shame spiral, if you will, right? My own story of achievement and then constantly feeling like that achievement was not enough and then constantly feeling guilty because why the fuck can't I just be happy with what I have? So I think that this applies. I mean, all of us deal with guilt and shame, but today's message is going to be geared towards that high achiever, that uber successful person, the person from the outside looking in. It looks like you have your shit together. And that's how I'm going to really relate to you today so that you can start to pull some of this apart. And a lot of the things that you're probably thinking in any given day is I should be happy, right? I should be happy with what I have. Or you're on the flip side of this and you're thinking, I should be farther along. I shouldn't be feeling this way. What is wrong with me? What am I missing? Why am I not where I want to be? Why have I not achieved these things? I know I've achieved these things, but I haven't achieved these things. And none of these thoughts are making it any better or making it any easier. So I give you permission to let go of them today. Okay. But what happens is they spiral into judgment, self-isolation, and ultimately burnout. Or for a lot of people, this is where I believe rock bottom comes from. Rock bottom comes from being at the bottom of a guilt and shame spiral where you have ruined so many things in your life that you can't even fucking see straight. And again, I speak from personal experience, so there is no judgment in this. And a lot of what you're feeling, I can resonate with, and I can tell you how to work through it. So what I really want you to feel at the end of this is that you know how to get out of this spiral. But the thing that I will tell you, because I know this, and again, I've done this as well, listening to this and doing nothing differently is a waste of time. So if your goal is to listen to this podcast because it's giving you a dopamine hit, because you feel a little bit better, but you're not going to do any of the things that I share with you today, turn it off. Okay. I'm going to give you back the 20 minutes to go do something else. But if you're here because you're so fucking sick and tired of your own shit, then let's do it. Sound good? So society praises you for your success, right? Like they tell you that you're doing amazing. Like based on what the outside world says success is, you have achieved it. So maybe you've climbed a corporate ladder in some capacity. Maybe you're an entrepreneur who's hit that 7-figure mark. Maybe you're a real estate agent who has, really thriving. Maybe you're you win the awards every year if you're a top whatever producer. Maybe you're a mortgage lender who's in, the top however many in your market. And you have worked so hard to get there. Like you have worked your ass off, possibly sacrificing some really important things in your life, yet you still feel unsatisfied and you still feel like there's something missing. And you make the assumption that it must be something that is wrong with you. And that is what happens in this guilt and shame spiral, because people assume that your life is perfect. People look at you, or you even assume that your life should be perfect. I have all of these things. And again, this is where the what the fuck is me comes from, right? So you then don't tell anybody about what you're dealing with, because if they knew, then they would no longer think how amazing you are, right? So it's like this really weird place to be where you don't feel great and you don't feel like you have everything, but you don't want the rest of the world to know that you feel that way. And it's this really, really weird place where it's like, if I admit that I'm not happy, well, people think that I'm ungrateful. If I admit that I don't want to be on this ride anymore, what are people going to think? And will they judge me? And then we worry that we're going to lose our credibility and people are going to want to work with us because nobody wants to work with somebody who doesn't have their shit together. And one of the things that I have been learning over and over again that I will share this with you is that vulnerability is a superpower. The ability to say the unpopular thing actually makes you way more magnetic than pretending you have your shit together. I promise. And again, speak from personal experience. So what winds up happening is that you have this guilt over your success. So you do what I did, right? Is that you self-sabotage. And then, so you achieve, and then the self-sabotage comes in, right? I did an entire episode on self-sabotage last week, but self-sabotage comes in, and then one of two things happen. You either overwork, right? You throw yourself into your work because you're like, I'll just work my way through this, like I've worked through everything else in my life, or you stop trying. And that one is, it's a mind fuck for sure. But then again, this cycle just continues and it goes on and on and on. And sometimes you can pull yourself out of it and sometimes you can't. But that guilt over your success of like, I'm so successful, then there's the sabotage, and then again, overwork or underplay. I also see shame over not being happy, right? So this then comes isolation. We stop hanging out with people. I will never forget, I moved into the neighborhood I live in now in 2020. So we bought this property in July, August of 2020. And I recently in the past few months, had a cup of coffee with a woman who lives in the neighborhood. Our kids are similar its age. And she goes, I just kind of thought you didn't like me. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't like me. It was not you. It was me. I was in the self-isolation phase of feeling so guilty and so ashamed of the situation that I felt like I had put my family in, that I was not letting anybody into my life, right? Like I just kept everybody at an arm's length, and I hid behind busy, right? That was like one of those people like, oh, you must be so busy. I wasn't busy. I was like in the fucking fetal position on the floor of my room or my house or my living room or whatever, trying to figure out how the fuck to get out of it. But this self-isolation, we start to pull away from people, is that shame over not being happy with what we have. And then again, what comes in is your big, beautiful brain comes in and goes, I should be grateful. I should just be grateful for what I have. But when we force gratitude or try to find that gratitude, it winds up just becoming self-punishment because we're not actually happy. We're not actually happy with what we have. We would be willing to trade what we do or do not have to actually feel happy. And then it's like this self-punishment where then we just continue to dump on it and make ourselves the bad guy. And just, it's a wild ride. It's a wild ride. I know that you know what I'm talking about, but these are the things that happen, right? That we wind up in these loops, this isolation, this self-judgment, this self-punishment, this what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can't I be happy? I can't let the rest of the world know. And it can become so big and so heavy that you become somebody you don't even recognize anymore. And it's terrifying. At least for me, it really was. But I think what's helpful, and I see this a lot with my clients, and I do this in my work in the Uncensored Self-Discovery with my clients, is oftentimes when we understand where it is coming from, it's a little bit easier for us to wrap our heads around. So today I'm going to break down some of the places that where guilt and shame are coming from, so that again, you can kind of see, hey, this is why I have created this. And sometimes when we understand things and we understand why we're doing it, we can move through it. So the first one is that cultural and societal programming of what success looks like. I think that the American dream has created more drama than it has ever any success as far as I'm concerned. And when I say the American dream, it's that self-prescribed. First of all, you can be, do, and have anything you want. And here's how you do it, right? You go to college, you get a job, or you get a degree, you get a job, you climb the ladder, you work hard, you prove yourself, you earn it, right? And that's where like that hard work is your worth. Are you working hard? Are you willing to put in the work? We're hearing this story right now, right? With Gen Z and how Gen Z doesn't want to work and how Gen Z is lazy. Fuck that. Gen Z has just figured out what we have not, which is, if suffering and sacrifice is the price to pay, I'm not willing to pay it. There are too many different ways to make money. And that is because we taught them that. We taught Gen Z that money is a completely unlimited resource that they can make from literally showing up and recording themselves talking on a fucking app. So like, I'm going to go work for that asshole and work 80 hours a week to do it. No, thank you. But we complain about them, right? Then we complain about Gen Z and how they don't want to work, yet we're having a hard time, right? But that's a whole other podcast. But hard work equals worth. So your worthiness is coming from your work. So of course there's a whole lot. If you're not working hard enough, and what the fuck is hard enough, let's not kid, then we're constantly feeling like we should be doing more. We should be doing more. And then of course we've also learned that success is something to be earned through struggle. We love a fucking rags to riches stories, right? We don't like anybody who we feel like it was just handed to them, right? That's why we don't like the uber wealthy, because uber wealthy gets handed down from generation to generation. There are people born with more money than they'll ever spend. And then we judge the shit out of those people, right? So then again, success is something to be earned through struggle. And if you didn't earn it, it isn't worth having. And we judge you and we don't like you. And then of course, if success comes too easily, you didn't earn it, therefore you don't deserve it. This is a really big one as well. And then we're conditioned to believe that we have to suffer, that suffering, that there's going to be some sacrifice here, that you can't have it all. How many times have we heard that? You can't have it all. You can't have it all. How many times have we heard that, right? So then we're like, okay, well, this is just totally normal to not have it all. And that is the programming that we have been given. So that is one area where your guilt and shame is coming from. It's also coming from our childhood and early life conditioning, right? So, I mean, really think about this, guys. Were you praised for working hard, for being responsible, for achieving? What did that look like inside of your home? What did that look like from whoever raised you? When you worked really, really hard, what did that look like? And this is something I'm trying to break with my kids right now. Like, I don't pay my kids an allowance for their work, because again, I think I'm just reteaching them the same thing. Well, if you do things, if you trade your time for money, I'll pay you. I don't want my kids to learn that. I don't want my kids to learn that's how we make money. We make money through our vibration. We make money through our energy. We make money through our value exchange. We don't make money through sacrifice and hard work. But oftentimes, especially us generationally, we were praised for working hard, being responsible, for achieving. I know people who are paid for their grades or paid for their performance in sports games, right? So we were like, okay, so when I do these things, when I work hard, when I'm responsible, when I achieve, I'm praised. That's good. So I'm going to keep working hard. I'm going to be keeping responsible. I'm going to keep achieving because I want the praise that comes with it. So that's kind of that childhood and early life conditioning. Some of us have stories of being like the smart one or the successful one. Like when you look at your siblings or your friend group, which one were you, right? Which one were you? And if you were the smart one or the successful one or the one that would figure it out, right? Like that conditioning has again told you, you better fucking figure it out. And if you ask for help, oh no, what are we going to do? Right? So that I think is a really big one as well. And again, I think I'm not even going to go down. I'm like trying to decide. Can you see my brain working right now? I think our school conditions this, right? I think the way that school works, I mean, think about what we do. We put children into schools and then they are then awarded for sitting still, being quiet, knowing the answer, and they are punished for being active, having an opinion, and not getting the answer right. So we wonder, what the fuck is wrong with us? I don't know. The way our school system is aligned, our education system is aligned because our worth, our worthiness, our performance was tied to achievement. And that means if I can achieve it, that means I can lose it. Right? So your worthiness then becomes conditional upon performance. And that is why you have this guilt and shame spiral, because you're not worthy unless you're earning it, unless you're performing. And then if you're not performing, there's shame. If you're not working hard enough, there's guilt, because that is what our society conditioning has told us. And so then if struggle was celebrated in your home, then ease feels wrong, right? When we struggle, when we celebrate somebody who suffered through so much to get where they are, we're like, oh shit, this shit isn't supposed to be easy. So this child and early life conditioning where our worthiness is based upon our performance is actually what has created so much of this for us. Another thing, and this is one that it actually in my research for today's podcast, I was doing some research and they talk about like survival's guilt and comparative guilt. So if you have surpassed where you have come from, people have a hard time when they're making more money than their parents, right? Whether it's financially, emotionally, professionally, if you are outshining somebody maybe you really looked up to or somebody that was your hero, you're worried of like how that's going to be perceived. That very much causes a lot of guilt for people. This is not one that I personally resonate with, but I imagine that there's some of you out there that's a thing, right? Like there's a person in your life who was your hero, who you looked up to. And then if you outsurpass that person, like there's that weird guilt that comes with it. Again, also I see this in peer groups. If you've got a group of friends that you've been friends with forever, and then you're all of a sudden making a fuck ton of money or getting promoted or being recognized in all of these different ways, especially depending upon how your friends, I actually have an entire friend group that I spent years with in my 20s that I don't really associate with anymore because that was kind of how it went, right? Like when I started thriving, I had a friend who literally had a problem with it. Like she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, fucking winning. But that is very much like, then it's like, oh, I feel guilty because I'm winning and you don't like it. And then that's where people pleasing comes in and different things like that. But I see a lot of guilt and shame around that as well, especially again, if you have a friend group who's not super supportive, if you start outperforming those people, they'll tell you, oh, you've changed. And oh, ever since you started being successful, this happened and that happened. And then again, there's a whole lot of guilt and shame wrapped up in that. And then, you also start to question, why do I have this life that others don't, right? Why am I so successful? And other people who maybe I went to school with, or again, spend time with, or work in the same industry as, why don't they have it? And sometimes we have a little bit of that. Again, that's that comparative guilt, that survival guilt of why me and not somebody else. And again, I think this comes from our conditioning, but that's also a reason why a lot of high achievers carry that guilt and shame, because again, sometimes it is judgment from other people. And sometimes it is that fear of judgment of those other people, because again, you don't feel special. None of us do, right? I know very few high achievers that are like, let me tell you what my secret sauce is, other than you're just the fucking secret sauce. But it's not intentional. It's not something you seek out or something you really work on. It's literally just innately who you are, which is the whole point, but it is what kind of fucks our brain up pretty Pretty much. And then there is the never enough mentality, which we are all plagued by. Every single fucking one of us is plagued by the never enough, right? We have our identity wrapped up in growth. And so as we grow, it's more, 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 more. But growth is never ending. Like we are literally, again, souls living in a physical body. I've talked about this on the podcast before. So you're a spiritual being in a physical body. You're here for expansion. That is the point of your entire journey. You're always going to be expanding. You're always going to want more. One of my favorite teachers is Abraham Hicks. And one of the things that they say over and over and over again is you'll never get it done. You'll never get it done because every time you achieve something, there is contrast that comes up with that, right? Then you want more and then something else is born from that. But then you think that, again, that there's something wrong versus this is just the natural order of growth and expansion. We're supposed to grow and expand. It's very natural and normal for us to want to grow and expand. But again, we find a lot of guilt in that because, again, growth is never ending. And what winds up happening is that, again, we start chasing these external things instead of seeing the growth and fulfillment as an inside job. And I think that that is, again, what causes a lot of that not enough. Another one, again, I mentioned this before, but I want to spend a little bit more time here, is the internal dialogue, the shoulds. I should be farther along. I should be making more money. I should be more grateful. I shouldn't be spending this way. It should look like this. It should look like that. I should have that car. I should be in that house. I shouldn't be struggling with this. This shouldn't still be a problem. What the fuck is wrong with me, right? That never enough. So again, no matter whether it's I should be somewhere else or what is wrong with me because I'm not there, is again, there is something wrong with me. And we try to fill that gap of what is wrong with me with things in the outside world, like money and cars and recognition and follower count and job title and those types of things. And then when those things don't actually bring us the fulfillment that we think that they should or that we want them to, then again, we have a lot of drama around that. And so should statements are actually like guilt that is keeping you disconnected from you want, because there is no should, right? There is no should. I always tell my clients, like, shoulds and have tos are not welcome here. There is no should. If it's like, I should do this or I should do that, but why? But why? Why should you be farther along right now? Like, honestly, answer that question. If you're sitting here thinking, I should not be in this amount of debt, I should not be in this situation, I should be farther along by now. Why? 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 Your life is your life based on the choices that you have made through the lens of cultural and societal programming, child and early life conditioning, right? Like all of these things. So it's like, but why? According to who? Whose rules are you following? Whose benchmarks? Because again, a lot of us, the benchmarks aren't even ours. Like when you ask somebody, well, who says that this is not enough money? Most people can't answer that question. It's a made up fucking benchmark that you don't even fully understand, but you have taken it on in such a way that it is ruining your life. How bananas is that? So that's kind of where I want to go next with this, is this guilt and shame spiral and how it really does wreck every area of our life. And I'm sorry if you're going through this, but this is again, probably one of the most important conversations we've had so far on this podcast is how do we get out of this, right? So let's see how does it show up in our money? Let's talk about that. I think money is the most emotionally charged topic, right? Like it is one that we have the most fucked up relationship with it as bananas, right? Because if you don't have enough money, there's something wrong with you. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why can't you make more money? Aren't you smarter than that? If you have too much money, we also think there's something wrong with that, right? We live in a society that tells us that uber rich people are bad, that uber rich people are ruining the world, that it is unethical to make that much money. So we have this total mind fuck around money. So we're feeling guilt and shame whether we have a shit ton or we have zero. How bananas is that, right? But I just want you to know, if you're somebody on the end that has like a shit ton of money, the people with no money also feel guilt and shame, and vice versa. Because again, you're looking at money as something outside of you, and you're looking at money to make you worthy in some capacity, because if you weren't, then you wouldn't have that guilt and shame. So the way to clear that guilt and shame is to take the power away from money. Money has no power over you. It has nothing to do with who you are ethically or morally, or whether you're a good person, or what you're deserving of, or what you're worthy of. It's literally all just stories and programmings that you have told yourself. Health. Whew. This is a big one, right? This is one that I probably have had a really big, believe it or not, guilt or shame spiral with, because I was an athlete. I was a Division I athlete, and I went away to college to play ball. I told that story. And when I stopped playing ball, I gained weight, right? When you stop training like a college athlete and you continue to eat and drink like a college kid, you gain weight. And I don't ever want to throw any shade to my mother at all, but my mom did not have a healthy relationship with her body. So at this time, I'm 18, 19 years old, and I do not have a healthy relationship with my body because I've never been modeled a healthy relationship with my body. So I literally, once I stopped playing volleyball, when I was a kid and when I was an athlete, didn't care, right? Like didn't care. But once I started gaining weight and my clothes stopped fitting, because my body composition had changed, because I wasn't living in a gym, I again made that mean something about myself. And then when I couldn't get the weight off, I also made that mean something about myself, that there's something wrong with me. I clearly just didn't have any discipline. I didn't want it bad enough. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you that you can't just not put that in your mouth? Stop doing that, right? So huge guilt and shame spiral around our health. And then sometimes, again, we overcompensate with things like over exercising or over dieting or just doing nothing, right? I see a lot of people do this, and I feel like I did this when I was going through kind of my stuff. When I was younger, it was over dieting and over exercising, right? Like that was my overcompensation. And then when I got stuck in the money stuff back in like 21 and 22, then I went into like, I just don't give a fuck. I'm going to do nothing, right? And we totally ignore self-care because clearly work is more important, right? I need to be working. I need to be working on the business. I need to be doing more. So again, we have this, like it just wreaks havoc on either side. Again, either side, because even people who don't feel like they need to lose weight still feel like they need to be taking care of their health, but they're not because they're too busy working. And then again, there's the people on both sides of it. Also shows up in our relationships, struggles with intimacy, struggle with friendships, receiving help, letting people in, receiving love, for fuck's sake. When you think that you are an unworthy person, it is hard to even let people love you or to let them help you. I remember when Derek and I first started dating, we would go to the grocery store, and at the time we were not living together, right? But he would just sometimes pick up groceries. And I had such a hard time with that, though I needed the help, right? So then I was ashamed because I did in fact need the help. It was really helpful for you to pay for groceries. But then I had shame about needing the help. And then I had a hard time actually receiving that help. So it was like this multifaceted thing, but that creates problems, right? Like it wreaks havoc in your friendships, because if you're used to being able to go out and drop $500 on dinner and you can't do that anymore, right? That certainly wreaked havoc on me. Or not wanting to tell people I can't afford that, or not wanting to tell people I'm not eating that right now, like all of that, right? Like, so then there's this guilt and the shame of not being able to show up, and so much drama, right? Obviously our businesses. I see a lot of people have this fear of taking up space, fear of saying what they want to say because what will people think, right? That's a really big one. Struggling with visibility is probably one of the biggest ones. And this is one that's very sneaky because again, you're already successful and you're already pretty visible, but again, it's not the real you that's really visible. And so I find this when we start to strip back the layers and get people like really open to who they are, that fear of visibility is like, I'm okay with showing you the facade, right? I'm okay with showing you the social media public friendly version of myself. But if I have to show you the real me, right, warts and all, fears and all, guilt and shame and all, I'm really uncomfortable with that. So that again winds up impacting your business and your career, because if you don't want to be seen and you don't want to show up as who you are, you're not the most magnetic version of yourself. So you're not achieving what it is you want to achieve. And then of course, there's just the overall burnout and self-sabotage, guys, feeling like you always have to earn rest. Like rest is not something that should be earned. You shouldn't have to work yourself to burnout to take a day off or to take a vacation. You don't have to deserve happiness. It's just who you are, right? God made you, God, the universe, source, whatever you believe in, fucking perfect. But we feel like we have to earn rest. Like, did I work hard enough to not torture myself today, right? Like, did I do enough to be happy with my results from today? And then again, the answer to that question determines how we feel. And the guilt and shame spiral. So you see where this is literally wreaking havoc for so many of us in so many areas of our life. And I know in what I just talked about that you're resonating in some way, shape, or form. If you're still here and you're still listening, some level of this is wreaking havoc. So how do we break free from the loop, right? How do we break free? I think the number one step in anything is awareness, right? Recognizing the pattern. Guilt and shame thrive in secrecy. If there are things that you don't want to tell people, that you don't want to talk about, that you don't want to be made public, you have to recognize those things. You don't have to make them public. I choose to make my shit public. That is my choice. That is my work. That is what I feel called to do. I don't think that is required to live a life free of guilt and shame, but you do have to admit it to yourself. Right? You do have to admit it to yourself. I strongly suggest you work with a coach or a mentor to also work through this. And you have to be willing to admit it to those people as well. But that anything that you feel the need to hide from other people is a guilt and shame spiral. Derek and I once went and saw a guy talk. He gave a really great presentation, but one of the things he said, and I say this often, and Derek sometimes repeats it back to me sometimes, is what you won't be with won't let you be. I'm going to say that for you again. What you won't be with, meaning what you won't look at, observe, study, understand, get comfortable with, won't let you be. It will continue to wreak havoc. I've said this before, the universe will teach you a lesson until you learn the lesson. It's the same thing here. If you refuse to face whatever it is that is wreaking havoc in your life, it will continue to wreak havoc. So the first thing is recognizing the pattern, noticing it when it shows up, and then asking yourself the question, did I really do anything wrong here? Am I really doing anything wrong by making fuck tons of money? Am I really doing anything wrong about no longer loving this career choice or this business? Am I really doing anything wrong by eating this food, by treating my body in this way, by sleeping like this? Am I really actually doing anything wrong, or is this just something that I'm programmed to believe? And most of the time you're going to discover most of it is programming. Most of you are not doing anything wrong in your lives ever. It's not who you are. That's not who you are. You're too much of a fucking perfectionist to do anything wrong. So the first thing is recognizing the pattern and then asking yourself, am I actually doing anything wrong here? Is there anything to feel guilty about? Is there anything to feel ashamed or embarrassed about in this moment? Or is this something I was taught or something I observed? That's a really big one. Was I taught this or was I observed this? And then start recognizing the shoulds. This is kind of the second step of the process, is name the shoulds. This is a really good one. This is a great reflection opportunity. If you are a journaler, is really think through what are the shoulds. Like seriously sit down with a pen. It should be farther along. I should be making more money. I should be more successful. I shouldn't be suffering with this, blah, 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 blah. And then ask yourself the question, where did these shoulds come from? Again, this goes back to says who that you should be farther along, says who that you should have more money. And are they people that you actually want to believe? And this is a big one. And I am not a Dave Ramsey fan. I'm sorry if you are. But that's one of the things. It's like, I was introduced early on to Dave Ramsey and debt and how terrible debt is. And Dave Ramsey believes that debt is terrible, right? And he tells you that if you have debt, you should not be eating in restaurants. Like it's literally shaming people about taking on debt to go out to restaurants. And people believe him. But why? But why? Because there are other billionaires and millionaires that fucking build entire businesses on debt and money that's not theirs. Like other people's money, OPM, is like every rich person's best friend. But Dave Ramsey got fucking famous on the internet because the church started telling people that they should follow him. And then we all have this immense amount of doubt, fear, and shame around debt. When most wealthy people have debt, except for the people who make money off of teaching you that debt is bad. And then they take the money that you don't have, that you can't put on a credit card. I'm not going to go there. Not going to go there. But the truth of the matter is, where did the shoulds come from? And do I actually believe them? Is this somebody who I care what they think of me? Do I care? Do I believe them? Do I know them? Are they living the life that I want to be living? Like, what's going on here? Why do I do this, right? And then we got to fucking start questioning the lies, right? What if I can just fucking want more because I want more? What if it was okay to just not feel guilty about that? What if it was okay to just say, you know what? God put me on this planet to experience all that it has to offer. And in order to experience all that it has to offer, I'm going to make a fuck ton of money so I can experience that. And I'm going to not feel guilty about wanting that. Or for me, I'm in a season of life of feeling guilty because I don't want to work that hard anymore. I don't want 4 billion hours worth of calls on my calendar. I don't want to spend all of my time chained to my desk. And I am constantly unwinding the story. Is it okay to want to grow a 7-figure business and not work or be tied to my computer all the fucking time or be on calls all of the time? What does that look like? Right? But like really looking through that lie of it has to look this way or it has to look this way, because that's simply not true, right? So what if you're allowed to want more without guilt? What if dissatisfaction isn't a sign of failure, but a signal? What if that unfulfilled, dissatisfied feeling that you fucking hate is God tapping you on the shoulder, your soul tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, over here, there's more over here. If you just go this way, if you just stop torturing yourself and being mean to yourself and saying mean things to yourself and feeling guilty and shameful all the time, the path is right here. It's right here. It's right here. It's a signal. It's not a sign to stop. It's not a sign to stop, it's a signal. And what if struggling doesn't make you worthy? What if you're just worthy because you're fucking worthy? That's it. What if it's okay for it to be easy? Like, what if? And start thinking through, like, do I like the story of it has to be hard? Because I don't know about you, I don't fucking like that story. I'm done with hard. I am done with hard. I have done hard, and all hard got me was more hard. I would like easy, please and thank you. And I am learning to not feel any guilt or shame around that. And I'm practicing by saying it out loud to you guys today, right? So then we have to reframe and restructure our narrative, right? So guilt says, I have more than others. I should want more, right? That's guilt. That's guilt talking. I have more than others. I shouldn't want more. The reframe is that is I have more than others, and I can use my success to help inspire or help other people enjoy more. I was having this conversation with a client the other day because we're talking about politics, and I'm not going to get political here on the podcast. It's not something I desire to do, but we were talking about politics, and it was like, whose work is whose, right? And to me, I don't believe that my work is political. Not that my work isn't political, but that like I belong in politics in any capacity. Like I don't feel called to share my thoughts and feelings on politics. That does not feel like my work. And what I mean by that is I believe that there's people out there that feel really called to politics as their work, and they should go and do that work. I believe that my work is to wake up more people to help them create more of a life that they love so that they can do whatever their work is. So maybe there is somebody whose work is politics, but they're not able to work in politics because they're stuck in a job that they hate. But if I can help that person get out of that job that they hate and realize that they are in fact the creator of their reality, and then they can figure their shit out and go work in politics. Could be politics, it could be medicine, it could be healing, it could be whatever it is, right? But to me, when I succeed, it is because I am waking up the world, which means that my success is really fucking important. So I could believe that, oh, I have more than others, or I can believe that my success means that I am making the world a better place because when I win, my clients win, and my clients win, their clients win, and their families win, and their children's win, and the ripple effect of my work is so motherfucking important that playing small is not an option, right? Or I can feel guilty because I want more. We get to choose, do we not? Shame says, I should be happy. There's something wrong with me because I'm not happy. But the reframe here is that happiness is not a destination, it's an experience. And feeling unfulfilled doesn't mean that you're broken. It literally just means you're being called in a different direction. To me, what I think of dissatisfaction and the lack of fulfillment is actually your soul telling you that it's wrong. Or not that it's wrong, I hate that word, right? But that you're on the wrong path. Like, look over here. And this is such fucking bullshit advice, and I used to hate it, the whole enjoy the journey advice. And you were like, fuck you. But it is so true because, and I said this before, Courtney Benson has shared this in talks that she's given in our podcast interview together. You cannot have an unhappy journey to a happy place. You cannot have an unhappy journey to a happy place. So happiness cannot possibly be a destination. It has to be present. If you think that whenever you get where you're going, whatever thing you're feeling guilty or shameful about, that once you solve that, you're all of a sudden going to be happy, you're missing the fucking point. The goal is to be happy now, even if nothing changes, and being able to look at the world it is today and find the things that are really fucking amazing. Because even if you were struggling to put food on the table right now, there's got to be something in your life. There's got to be something in your life, whether it's a person that loves you, whether it's your kids, whether it's a roof over your head, or being temperature controlled, or somebody that can feed you when you don't have, you can't put that food on your table, or whatever it is. There is something to be grateful and to be happy about. Happiness is not somewhere that you're going to get with your pile of money. Happiness is something that you live every single day when you fucking get out of bed and you do the work that you're doing. That's happiness. And then we have got to stop using guilt and shame as motivators, right? A lot of us wait. And that guilt and that shame drives us in such a fucked up, weird way that we're like, we got to wait until it hurts. We need to be backed against a wall and like in a fucking corner before we'll show up. We got to stop doing that to ourselves, right? We've trained ourselves to work harder because of that guilt. I'll just keep working, right? Like I'll just keep suffering. I'll just keep slaving away. But what if you just started taking action because you genuinely fucking wanted to, because you enjoyed the work that you do, not out of shame, not out of obligation, not out of pressure? What kind of world would that be if you just woke up every morning and did what you wanted to do because you were fucking good at it? And because you helped people in that work that you did. I don't care what it is you do for a living, you help people in some way, shape, or form. Guys, this is an important conversation, maybe more important than I realized it was when I hit record and I worked on my outline today. But guilt and shame are optional. They are literally just stories that you are telling yourself, and you can choose to stop telling those stories whenever you're fucking tired of it. And I know that sounds cliche and it sounds like an oversimplification, but it is that simple. And that is why you're having such a hard time putting it. Because the more you entertain the guilt and the more you entertain the shame, the more that they control you, because what you focus on expands. So when you focus on guilt and you focus on shame, you get more guilt and shame. What if you just stopped? What if you just stopped? What if you just stopped trying to fix yourself, fix the situation, and just fucking accept it? Literally, lesson 4, teaching 4 in my 6-week program with my clients is acceptance. Acceptance, that resistance, whole podcast on contrast and resistance, I believe is the name of it. I have a whole podcast on it. But if you stop trying to fix yourself or hide from yourself or hide the things that are wrong with you, and you just started accepting yourself because you're pretty fucking badass, everything would change. The entire world would change. Even if you didn't physically do anything different in the outside world, you didn't actually do anything different, and you just stopped hating yourself so fucking much, it would get better. Your success does not require suffering. That is a lie. That is a lie. I talked a lot about like trust fund kids and people like that, right? People who inherit money, people who inherit companies, people who just grow up in money, people who just receive scholarship money and different things like that in life and don't have that. They manage to get there without suffering. The only problem is the world made them shitty, made them bad people because I don't know why. Lack, limitation, control. I don't know the answer. But your success does not require your suffering. And when you stop telling yourself that it does, is when you'll stop suffering. This episode, I don't think is just about guilt and shame. It's about you really, truly owning your innate worthiness because you are a human being with a soul. Like that's all that's required. Fuck, you don't have to be a human being with a soul. You be just having a soul. Just having a soul makes you worthy of love, of happiness, of joy, of abundance, of love, of all of it. All of it. Whatever it is that you think that you want, you are worthy of it because you exist. That is it. That's all that's required. And as soon as you stop telling yourself any other story is when you will be able to drop the guilt and shame. Not only will you be able to hit the goals that you set for yourself, but you'll finally feel good. You'll finally feel good about it. You'll finally feel good about it because when you stop shaming yourself and you let go of the guilt and you finally start moving through the world as somebody who fucking deserves whatever it is that they want, like that's when the real you shows up. And it's not that the real you doesn't exist. You don't have to become that person. You have to peel back the layers and the stories to let that person show up. I think this is a big disservice that the personal development world gives us is that like we have to become somebody else, right? The identity of. So I always talk about the identity of creator. I don't want you to have the identity of a millionaire because then you still need to be a millionaire in order to feel good. I want you to be an identity of creator, which means I get to be, do, and have whatever the fuck I want because I am the one creating it. And I do that, the more of these layers that I strip back, the more me I am, the more successful I am. That's why I'm obsessed with identity work. That's why I have a 28-day self-study program on identity, because if you are not in a position to work in a high touch, high ticket investment program with me, you can at very least go through this 28-day program and it will change your life because it will help you pull back these layers of where the fuck did all this programming come from, because most of it's not yours. Most of it's not yours. So here's your permission to put it down. Here's your permission to love yourself and forgive yourself just because you exist. I'm so glad you're here. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Uncensored Self Podcast. If you're walking away with a new perspective, some fresh inspiration, or the push you needed to show up as your uncensored self, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode, leave a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, success isn't about following somebody else's rules. It's about owning who you are, deciding what you want, and going after it unapologetically. Until next time, keep leading, keep creating, and stay uncensored.